Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now, today I wanted to talk about something that I kind of touched on a little bit last week, but didn't really get into, and that is the managing expectations in relationships is important. And why is it important? Well, it's always good to know what you expect from someone, right? If you've got a relationship that's going on and you don't know what to expect from someone, from your partner, don't know what they are expecting from you, then it creates a lot of instability, a lot of uncertainty, can lead to arguments, can lead to all manner of problems down the line. And, that's kind of not the best ideal. Arguments are a part of relationships, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to kind of the arguments that we want to happen, we want to have them happen around either things that are important, where it needs to be hashed out, something that's completely irrelevant, but you come out stronger and closer out the other side. We don't want it being built off stuff that is just due to complete uncertainty, where people just don't understand, and it can be really horrific sometimes when there are big expectations placed on one person, not on the other, and so on and so forth. That kind of imbalance is kind of what we were talking about last week in regards to fairness in relationships. But as a result, there are three main things that, for the most part, I think we can all kind of learn from in regards to managing expectations. And there is so much on managing expectations in regards to kind of the world at large, making sure people know what they can expect from you, what you can expect from others, all that kind of thing. And to be fair, in my own life, it's one of the things that's most frustrating, because when it comes to what people can expect from me, I'm very transparent. If it's a client or someone that I'm working with, then it's all laid out in paperwork. And my friends, it's a case of I kind of you kind of get what it says on the tin with me. There's not really an awful lot of pretext and messing around. And so as a result, that's the kind of thing that we should be seeing in more. We see a lot of people getting fucked around with bad contracts that they've not been aware of, or policies at work that they haven't been paying attention to, or how your friends have maybe hidden parts of themselves from you, and so then when it comes out, you get hurt by it. But in a relationship, you're obviously that much closer. And so, firstly, learning in theory should be easier, but also at the same time, having the carpet pulled out from under you when something does happen that maybe wasn't expected, or wasn't supposed to, or was never even talked about in the first place, can be so much more damaging. And so, the first thing that I feel like is a big thing for relationships, is that distance isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. Firstly, the easier way is, distance can be a real boon when it comes to the two of you having arguments, the two of you having issues, or being uncertain, because taking that step back, having a bit more independence for a little bit, standing apart from one another, so that you can be, as I've said in other videos, two individuals working together to create a life together, rather than this weird unit of two people mashed together to try and do stuff. And so, it's important for, whilst people are bonding, whilst people are being close with one another and all that kind of thing, you have that wiggle room, that space, that leeway to just take a step back. And I mean that firstly in a mental sense. Something bad's about to happen, someone's had a bad day at work, things are going kind of wrong or weird or whatever, and you're not sure what to expect from it. And so what you do is you take a step back, just gain some perspective, take in some more information, ask some questions, all that kind of thing. Firstly, crazily important to be able to do that. But also, I mean, taking a step back, moving away, creating distance, in terms of like actually just going off and doing your own thing. Having that moment where you can just go off and do what you want to do, and having that as a kind of gap point for you to evaluate as well is really important. And how does this affect expectations and help you manage them? Well, if you think about it, if you know that they're going to be doing their thing and you're going to be doing your thing, and you have that space to go and do that, then you firstly can expect that that person isn't going to be around all the time, isn't always necessarily going to have full availability to you, all those kind of things. You can understand that. But also it means that when you actually come back, there's an expectation of difference between you. You've gone and experienced different things, gone and done different things, and so there's more to share and more to learn from, more to develop between the two of you in regards to discussion and interesting things to bounce between. Again, that adds to kind of variety and emotional connection and immersion in that interaction between the two of you. So that's 3 of the 4 DVI metrics that you can leverage just by creating that little bit of space, and that's a good thing. There's a reason why something I talked about a while ago, but long distance relationships have a greater level of overall satisfaction even after they've got together than people who have always been in very close relationships. It's that expectation of the two of you are going to live different lives, you're going to be doing different things, you're going to be experiencing different things, but then that means that you can come together and enjoy that stuff more together in the aftermath, rather than having to kind of cling and drag and pull someone with you or try and tackle them or whatever else. Now the next thing is you need to focus on your own life. If you're going out and you've got that space to go and do your own thing, live your own experience, then you need to actually focus on it. You need to pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it and who you're doing it with and all that kind of thing. You need to draw your own limits, your own boundaries, your own goals. Because if you're not doing that, and this is a thing that I come across a lot with people when I'm coaching, if you don't draw your own limits, your own boundaries, your own things, a lot of when I sit down with those people and start trying to kind of help them get to where they want to go, a lot of the questions that I ask then have answers that involve that other person. And as if that other person is kind of the rudder that is helping them go wherever they want to go. But obviously you can't use a person as a rudder. There has to be a conversation there has to be an interaction, and you can't just control them directly like you can with a rudder on a boat. And so as a result, the first thing with a lot of those people is trying to get them back round to realizing that they have to do it by themselves. You can't use someone else to kind of draw your path for you. You can't use someone else to kind of propel you. You can use, people can be assets. People can be helpful. But you can't focus solely on kind of what they're doing and how they're doing it, because people's lives change. Everyone's life is different. So you need to focus on yourself and work around that so that your relationship thrives, And, we've become very, as I did a video on this as well ages ago, we've become very focused on this kind of fairy tale romance version of relationships, which doesn't really help anybody, because it's a lot of unrealistic expectations. It's not you relaxing with your friend, it's grand gestures. It's not you experiencing very mundane but intimate moments with someone that you deeply care about. It's magic carpet rides across the planet with Aladdin. It's all of those kind of things, and as a result, you focusing on your own life kind of helps dissolve some of that. Where if you're focusing on a hobby that you have after work, and they're focusing on something that they've got to do after work, then you can still enjoy the other person's presence for support, advice, for getting them involved potentially, for interacting with them whilst you're doing it. Talking about your day whilst you're sat there filling out the last bits of paperwork you had to bring home, and they're sat there doing whatever it is that they're doing, making supper, playing a game, watching TV, whatever. It allows you to have it allows you to have that kind of conversation point, that comfortable moment with that person, the lack of awkwardness in silence when you're just both in the same place doing the same thing. There's a lot more kind of there for people to interact with and deal with and do than if one person is solely the focus and solely the driving force behind everything that's happening within that relationship. Or if the other person is very dependent on them, or very interlaced with that person's life. We've talked about this before in regards to taking ownership of your stuff and not someone else's. You can't go and kind of interject on someone else's problems or someone else's issues, especially if they don't want you to, but also because they are the people that are directly in control of it. You can't go and impose yourself in that way and expect no negatives to come out from it after the fact. And so, just when it comes to focusing on your own life, I'm talking about, who your friends are, what you're doing, how things are affecting you, your work, your hobbies, all that kind of stuff. You need to look at that and go, right, well, how can I make the most of the things that I want to make the most of? That in itself can be difficult, especially if you're both earning different amounts, or if one of you is a stay-at-home parent or something like that, then that can be more difficult. But at the same time, it's still important to do, not only for your own well-being, but for the well-being of the relationship, because again, that distance that we talked about a moment ago is kind of key to helping the two of you build a stronger bond that isn't solely kind of chaining the two of you together. But also, as said, we don't want the unrealistic romantic relationship to be the norm. We want the mundane, warm, intimate relationship to be the norm, and the huge romantic gestures to be the special occasions, because otherwise they lose their value anyway. And so focusing on your life, focusing on your ins and outs and the things that you've got to do and want to do, so much more useful to you, because it means that those mundane moments still become happy moments if both of you are just focusing on what makes you happy, what enriches your life, what kind of pushes you to do more and do better, but you just happen to be there doing it with someone else who's also having a good time. It makes a big difference. But then the last thing that I want to talk about is that when it comes, I haven't touched on communication yet, really. Kind of sort of did when I mentioned arguments, but I haven't talked about communication yet, and it's going to happen because this is a video around relationships. And so as a result, the last thing that I want to talk about is not communication in general, but communication in terms of you need to kind of lose the fear around asking questions. Yeah? Because when it comes to working out what's expected and all that kind of thing, where boundaries are, all of that kind of stuff, the stuff that informs how we react, informs how our partners will react to what we do. The managing of expectations is basically the way to avoid hurting feelings and avoid people getting upset and all that kind of thing. The way to deal with this is go, well, no one can read my mind, and I can't read anyone else's. So as a result, I need to ask questions. Yeah? You need to ask what people want from their relationships, what they want from parts of their relationships. Would you always like me to come out with you and your friends because I get on with them well, or are there times that you just want to go out with them by yourself? Do you want me to come home and go off and do my own thing as soon as I get home? Or would you prefer to sit down, review your day, have a discussion, have a cuddle, whatever, before then going on and doing our own thing? Yeah? How do you expect us to manage our day? What do you want from this? What do you want from that? Because otherwise, if you don't have those limits, those boundaries, those agreements, those kind of mutual expectations and understandings of what is going to happen, that's how you get things like resentment and misunderstandings and disconnection, and the breakdown of the relationship as a whole, and that becomes pretty miserable. And even during the honeymoon period, that very early period in a relationship, that even though they feel like the whole world to you in that moment, that's not going to last. We know that's not going to last. We know that reality is going to start poking into the cracks or trying to highlight certain flaws that they have or things that you're not happy about and all the rest of it. Simply put, this is again where I've pointed this out time and time again. No one is perfect. No situation can ever be perfect, in which case you should not expect people to be perfect. And the only thing that you can do to work out what you can expect to be pretty much ideal, or that you can't expect to be that way at all, the only way to really work that stuff out is by asking, have the conversation around it. You know, whether it's something as mundane as just who's doing which chores, or whether it's something that's much more intimate, like sexual preferences, sexual limits, things like that, or whether it's something that doesn't really relate to the relationship entirely, but obviously you two, or more potentially, are engaged in this relationship, and so what you do matters. And so, you know, when you've got work stuff and you've got family stuff and you've got hobby stuff and whatever else, you know, if you don't ask the questions, if you don't have the discussions, if you're not very transparent about what you want, because you need to ask for what you want, as well as, you know, asking what they want, then, you know, if you haven't done that, it's going to start breaking down, because you're not going to have that understanding, you're not going to have those managed expectations. You know, imagine, just to put this into a situation that we can have a discussion around, imagine if kind of you came home and you felt that you were completely fine just going upstairs, having a shower, getting changed, whatever else, and your partner had a completely different expectation of, well, when you come home, you want to come and say hello to me, don't you? You know, you want to give me a cuddle and give me a kiss and tell me how your day went and ask how my day went and all that kind of stuff. That's the first thing you want to do, right? Not creep into the house and upstairs and shower and change and whatever else. You want to come and see me first because I'm here. In which case, you know, imagine first few times of that going on, they might start to resent. Then if you know, they bring it up with you, but not in a very straightforward way, not in a transparent way, and so you don't get the message about coming in and saying hello to them first or something like that, and so you continue to just go and have your shower at the end of the day, not really necessarily wondering or realizing why there was upset before. Then maybe they start to become suspicious of you. They start to suspect that you're going outside the relationship or doing things that you're not talking about, lying to them, whatever else. There are lots of conclusions and resentful feelings that can kind of stem from this. And that's the last thing we want, right? In which case, ask the questions, have the discussions, and kind of just be as open with it as possible about everything. But anyway, guys, that's the 3 points that I wanted to touch on here in regards to managing expectations in relationships. Managing expectations more generally can be kind of huge, because there can be so many facets. I am going to be talking about expectations a bit more in regards to a couple of other areas this week, in which case stay tuned for those coming out over the next few days at 2 o'clock UK time. But otherwise, guys, thank you very much for watching, and you know, if you've got any thoughts around managing expectations or the expectations that you have or your partner has and all that kind of stuff, and you know, how maybe expectations have changed, because you know, I've got a few stories about that I might touch on over the next few days. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts, I'd love to hear your experiences, and otherwise thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. No, later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.